Hi folks, Dave Schmidt, and it's nice to be with you here again. It's the afternoon of May 16th, and it's been a while since I've done a recording for you here, and for various reasons on that, what I've been reporting in the newsletters is a lot of my very top quality sources have gone very quiet, very black during the last month or two, and in so many words they have asked me to do the same. I have said before is that as a public face in this process, there's not anything I can really do to quicken the process or bring in this whole process of funding about any quicker, but there could be some things that I could accidentally say that could create some problems. We have all basically been on the edge for about the last 2 months because it truly has been a week-to-week and a day-by-day process. The very fact that I'm coming back to you and reporting to you in a video is to tell you that things are very close. I know we've heard that before, but here's what I want to say. I have 4 primary intelligence sources that are very well connected. One of them comes right directly from inside the White House. A second one has direct contacts with the elders and the dragon families and the funders in various places throughout Asia. A third one is a contact with the bank that's from across on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, but they have direct contact with the organization and administrative functions here in the United States. And then also I have my own direct contacts with all of the sources that are going on in Reno and with some of those that are the largest currency brokers in the world. The 4 of us, we all talk almost on a daily basis. And we compare notes and stuff like that. But here's the one thing that we are all noticing. We have never, ever been this far along in the process. Today, I had one of my intel sources tell me that he had been communicating with the elders and the dragon families based in Asia, and that they had actually given him a date, and they had never, ever done that before. One of my sources that is in contact with the administrative structure of all this had said that one of those guys had said, I can't tell you on the phone what's going on, but I can tell you I've got this great big smile on my face and I've never had that before. In essence, he is saying, if you know how to read between the lines. My other sources in Reno are saying that the stuff is starting to flow there. Now, yes, I know we've said that before, but I've also said that I found out when we had those, we later found out that that was false intelligence, false information that was given to us, and we were able to trace it back. This time, the sources are saying, no, we are being told, but it is day to day. One of the things that I had received today was that over the weekend that you had heard about that there were these computer problems that had developed all around the world. Well, what we had found out, one of my sources had said that those computer problems were derived because there were basically hackers that were trying to break into and stop the codes in the banks all around the world from having this money flow. Now that's the different intelligence that's been coming at me for the last few days and the last week. But here's what I know. All of my sources, we all agree on this. We've never been this far along. Our intelligence sources are telling us stuff they have never ever said before, and we are all truly saying that it is day to day. Now there's a couple things I would like to share with you, as some of you have been emailing me with some of the information that you're receiving. I want to reiterate that in this process, every contract with every different private group can be different. So you can have some intricacies within that contract that can be far different than someone else, or it could be far different from what I am involved with. The people who are running and managing this process are not micromanaging the specific details of each different private group's contracts. They do oversee the larger process, but they don't micromanage it. I guess a better term to use is there is a macro management, but there is not a micromanagement of this process. So here's one thing I would really encourage you. If you're hearing of an opportunity, if you're hearing of a potential funding source, make sure you know who the buyer is. Find out who's the buyer and then find out who's funding that. There's only so much money that is going to be released because you see, the federal government here in the United States While they are not the ones who are funding and controlling the process, they can stop the flow of funds into this country. And they have done that in the past, and that's why we've seen a lot of the delays that have gone on for a couple of years. But everything that we're being told, no, they are ready to go this time. And in the past, I had said they had to make sure that the banks were safe. That appears to be taken care of. And we also had to make sure that all the deep opposition was out of the way. That appears to be taken care of. I can't tell you rates, and don't write me, email me asking about dates and rates. I'm giving you the information that I have at this time. But for security reasons and for protection for you, make sure you ask who's our buyer and who is the funder. Where is the money coming from? Because what's being reported out there in some of the other sources is that they're talking about these astronomical rates to be paid that literally would cost hundreds of quadrillions of dollars for it to be paid out. And I can tell you right now, U.S. government, U.S. Treasury is not going to allow hundreds of quadrillions of dollars to come into the United States and be spendable. Now, in the past, I had talked about these extremely large trusts, and I am personally aware of 5 of them, 5 of the largest trusts in the world. And they tell me about what they have in their accounts. The smallest one has about 60 zeros, and the largest one has over 120 zeros in it. Now, at first that's crazy. How could they have that kind of money? Well, here's what's important to know. They may have those funds in those accounts, but yet not a one of them can write a check. Why? Because IMF, the World Bank, and U.S. Treasury will not allow them to freely spend that kind of money. If a trust has 60 zeros in its account, has that kind of money, that one single trust literally could take over the world with that kind of money. But to move the money, it has to be moved through a bank. So even though they have these accounts that are that large, they can't really spend it until they will be authorized to move it. Now, how did they get that kind of money? Well, it's what I've talked about, is these off-market, non-Wall Street trading platforms. And most of these trusts have been involved in those platforms for 20, 30, and some of them even 40 years, and their money doubles about every 4 to 6 months. And if you started with 10, 15, 20 million dollars and your money was doubling every 4 to 6 months in 20 years, it's not hard to imagine, because you could have, an account with 10 zeros in it, and 6 months later it's 20, and 6 months after that it's 40. I mean, that's hypothetical, I understand that, but you can begin to see how they can generate those large sums of money. But here's what I do know. I do know there's oversight in this process from within the U.S. government. And the U.S. government, while as I said, they are not the ones that are funding, they are one of the final authorities of when it is to be released. And my inside intelligence sources are telling me they're ready to go. It's truly day to day. Now, what does that mean for us? It means for those of us in the first round of the funding, we don't know how long it's going to take to filter down to us because of how many steps there are in between and how many different banks the money has to move through. But everything that we are being told is the first round of the funding from these sources, it is in the process of being released and it's starting to move. Now, I've always told you about those that are on my list about second round funding. Of those 5 large trusts that I've told you about, I've had 3 of them tell me directly they want to fund everybody that is on my list. But I need to bring a caveat out there. Even though they want to fund it, we still have to come back and understand it has to be approved by the U.S. government to allow that kind of money, that sum of money, to come into the United States. So I cannot guarantee you that there would be a round 2. I am doing everything that I can, and I know the funding sources want to do everything that they can, because remember, the original intention of all these sources is not about you and me getting rich. It's about us being used as vehicles to spread this money around the world in various types of humanitarian and spending projects. That's the intention. and we get to be used as vehicles, and in that process we're being rewarded fairly well. All of my funding sources that come out of Reno have all said the same thing. Anticipate and plan on the fact that there's going to be the 20-80 principle. Now that is not exactly the same thing in every contract, but what it means is about 20% of the money you will get to keep, and about 80% is going to go into administrative cost and in funding projects all around the world. Don't plan on the fact that if you hear a certain rate that's going to be given for either Zim or dinar or dong, that you're going to be getting all that money yourself. No, there's a very high probability that is not going to happen. Now I want to talk about again the individual currencies, because I'm kind of repeating myself. I've said this before, but I think it's very important for you to understand. All of my funding sources, whether it's the brokers, whether it's the individuals in contact with the various sources all around the world, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's in Reno, whether it's in the administrative centers, none of them can tell me that they know of anybody who is buying any Zim. All my sources, we all agree that Zim was a limited currency for a limited period of time for a limited number of people. If you are holding Zim, there's a very high probability you're not going to get something for it. Now that doesn't mean that there may not be something else that might arise that I am not aware of. But you're going to have to know a buyer, because at the end of the day, somebody is going to have to buy it from you. Now let me talk about the dinar. I have mentioned that the dinar has been vastly overprinted and oversold. At the end of the day, these buyers have to have a reason of why they're going to want to buy this dinar from you, because they're being paid something for it too. There is a financial incentive for them to buy this dinar. And what I am being told, and my sources, we pretty much agree on this, is that the dinar was so overprinted and so oversold, there may not be a market for the dinar in round two. Can I guarantee that? No. Could there be some individual selective possible other opportunities? Yes. But on a broader scale, everything I'm being told is don't count on it, because it was so vastly overprinted and oversold. Let me give an illustration. Through some of my contacts, I am aware of 4 different private single exchange or contract opportunities, and in those 4, every one of them has at least hundreds of trillions of dinar, and there's one specific that has over 10 quadrillion dinar. One single person has more than that. Those alone are making up scores of quadrillions of dinar that are going to be supposedly exchanged in these private exchanges. What does that do to the market for the rest of us? Now let me talk about the dong. I have always said the dong is the safest of all the currencies that you could purchase if you wish to do that. Here's the reason why. As I said, there's no guarantee that we're going to get funded in a round two. I cannot guarantee that. There's a high probability, yes. But all of my buyers have said that the dong is the safest one and it's the most likely one to move, because number one, Zim was limited. Number two, dinar was vastly oversold. But why is the dong so safe? Because it's the only one of the 3 that is tradable on the open foreign exchange market. If you go out and you buy some dong and this whole thing falls apart, you can always get your money back. The only thing you would lose is going to be the exchange fee that you pay the bank or whoever you bought it from on each end. You can take your dong into a bank and they will buy it back from you because it's an open foreign exchange market. I know some of you have said, well, they're not doing it. Well, then go find another bank that will. Or go take it down to an airport, foreign exchange little kiosk center, because they'll buy it from you. They'll buy it from you at what is the current quoted foreign exchange rate. Now, what about these other currencies that I've heard about? The one from Iran and the Indonesian one. I don't know. I can't find anybody who's buying them. There's people that talk about them, but it's extremely important for you to know there's a lot of people out there that may have some select contacts and they're flipping it is what they're doing it. At the end of the day, make sure that you have a buyer and you can have a somewhat of an idea who the funder is, unless you want to buy these currencies and have just nothing but a bunch of good looking wallpaper. Because there, I think, in my opinion, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to end up that way because they didn't do their homework. So with that said, folks, encourage you to be on the, can listen in on the radio program, because the open Q&A, it's always a wonderful time. A lot of people are asking a lot of good questions. And also remember, there's a lot more that I can say in the workshops than I can here on the air, because when you put it out on the internet, you totally lose control of it. And there are people out there that don't like what I have to say. They would love to attack me, and they will take certain things and totally misrepresent it, lie about it, spread false information. But in a workshop, we're in a private setting. There's no more than 80 to 100 people that are there, and I can basically answer questions directly and help them directly, so I can share more stuff and give more detailed information that is there. Ask anybody who's been to my last few workshops, and they will tell you it was well worth their time that they had attended. I have one this coming Saturday in New Orleans, and then 3 weeks after that I'm in Seattle. And then after Seattle I go to Philadelphia, and then Denver, and then back here in Sedona, and that takes me all the way up into August. So I have one every 3 weeks, and I'll continue to do these workshops even when the funding starts coming through, because then I can still share more information. I just change, the content a little bit. But it's always an enjoyable time for me to be there, because it's where I get to meet with you face to face. We get to have interaction with each other, and we get to learn from each other in that type of a setting. So thank you very much for joining me here tonight, and I'll look forward to having you on the radio program. Okay, bye-bye.